Welcome to Chapter 4, Strategic and Operational Planning. Strategic leadership and planning are major determinants of organizational performance. The next slide we have is the importance of planning and understanding that planning is one of the most important tasks managers do. And there's three major benefits to planning. Speedier, quicker decision making, better management of resources, and clear identification of the action steps needed in order to reach the goals. Poor planning for the use of organizational resources can, however, lead to failure. The solution to this is to improve the strategic and operational planning process in a company. And that's what we're going to talk about in this presentation. Although planning won't secure the success of a new venture, planning increases the probability of survival. Good planning is based on conceptual decision-making skills. The story that we have, or an example that we have, is the XFL. Many of you probably don't remember because it was around just a short time, but the WWE or WWF, depending on your generation, decided to start a rival football league to the NFL. It was in the spring season, so it didn't directly compete with the market of the NFL. It was started by Vince McMahon, and it was an idea that followed really, really poor planning. And with it, it was just a quick flash in the pan. But what we do is understand that for every 10 products introduced, 8 are going to fail. And the reason for this is that this high rate is poor planning. We'll discuss some of those things. Again, planning doesn't guarantee its success, but not planning will guarantee that it will fail. Strategic planning. What's the plan? Okay, what are we going to do? In strategic planning, management develops the mission and long-term objectives and determines in advance how they'll be accomplished. So the very first step, we got to figure out what our mission is. What are we going to do? Operational planning. Operational planning management sets short-term objectives and determines in advance how they'll be accomplished. So think of operational planning as 1 year or less, and strategic planning as 5-year plans. Common practice is every year you relook or revisit your 5-year plan or your strategic plan. 3 levels of strategies. Okay? And here on this slide we have corporate, business, and functional. As an organization's strategy is its plan for pursuit of its mission. Once again, it's an organization's strategy is its plan for pursuing its mission. So we have to start with the mission. What are we going to do as far as this planning? And then you have the 3 different levels of planning. And then what we want to discuss or understand is that there's strategic process. The strategy, there's 5 different aspects that we have to address. So again, the very first thing we got to do is develop a mission. What are we doing? Where are we going? What's our why? Number 2, analyze the environment. Again, internal and external environment. We must analyze those things. Set the objectives. Short-term, long-term objectives. We must set those. Those are going to be number 3. Number 4, develop strategies. Strategies for reaching these goals, reaching these objectives, and accomplishing our mission. And then number 5 is implement and control. A lot of companies, a lot of ideas fail because of number 5. We can be great at developing, analyzing, setting objectives, and developing strategies. But if we don't implement these things and control how we manage these things, then we're not going to be successful. Situation analysis. The definition, the vocabulary definition of situational analysis. It draws out those features in a company's environment that most directly frame its strategic window of options and opportunities. To create value, a strategy must fit within the capabilities of the firm and its external environment. If it doesn't fit within those parameters, within its capabilities, then it's going to fail. This is what we do in situational analysis, is we're going to figure out if this strategy is going to work. So 3 parts to situational analysis. Analysis of the company's industry and its competition, analysis of the company's particular situation, its resources, where they stand, what do we have to work with, and then number 3, analysis of the company's competitive advantage, or in some cases lack thereof. So we must understand, well, why would consumers pick our company, our team, our business over competitors, or why they wouldn't. So those are definitely things that we have to pay attention to. Companies with multiple lines of business must conduct environmental analysis for each. So you have massive companies that might have different divisions or products. For example, one we always go back to is Nike. Nike's more than just athletic shoes. So understanding of each division of, being able to analyze that situation for good or for bad. What is, Nike's biggest competitive advantage is obviously brand recognition, among other things too. But being able to analyze what your advantages, what the situation is, and what the current industry for it is. So always important, it goes back to decision making with chapter 3. 5 competitive forces. So we talked about competitive advantage, but there's 5 of these forces that are going to drive your ideas and drive your business in the direction you want to go to. So different sport management strategies are needed in different areas. To determine whether an industry is worth entering requires answers to such questions as how large is the market, what is the growth rate, and how many competitors are there? Is it worth diving into this? Is it oversaturated market? The market, about 10 years ago in strength and conditioning among public institutions and public teams just became really, really oversaturated. So what was done was established in a different level of certification. Same thing with athletic trainers. Athletic trainers now have to go through a grad program or master's program, where in the past it was just a bachelor's and then certification. So those things were done to kind of level out the market, but something to pay attention to. What are some 5 competitive forces listed right here on the slide? Rivalry among competitive firms, potential development of substitute products and services. Again, where you have these companies that, like Under Armour started off as a apparel company and now they're making shoes, as an example. So again, those are, some competitive forces, potential of entry of new competitors. Again, example would be like Under Armour. No one really saw them come in, and now they are actually a pretty big foe of Nike as far as in the apparel. And their plan of, trying to, as many NC2A teams or professional teams, professional athletes is. It's working. It's definitely created a competitive market. So Nike isn't completely monopolized that as well. Bargaining power of suppliers and bargaining power of consumers. We'll talk about 4 and 5 a little bit later, but just understand that supply and demand, consistent business product, business 101. Just understanding that is going to drive products positively and negatively. The next slide, we're going to talk about, competing with others. So right there, we have Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Puma, Fila, are rivals in the athletic footwear industry. I'd even throw in New Balance now, especially in the athletic field of it. It was always kind of a running shoe. New Balance has always been one kind of that's interesting to me in the marketplace because for years they didn't rely on professional athletes to market their shoes. Now it's a little bit different, especially in the aspect of Major League Baseball or baseball, according to that market. But all of those companies, they're anticipating each other's moves. Are we going to strictly stick with shoes? Fila, are we going to make our mark with tennis? And then new competitors, as I mentioned before, with like Under Armour. So Under Armour started off as an apparel company, Dry Fit, revolutionized that marketplace, and now they've gone on to uniforms. They've gone on to shoes. So now they are directly competing with those other companies mentioned above. Figure 4.3 is just, this is on Nike. This is Nike's 5 forces competitive analysis. And number 1 is the rivalry among competing firms. Then you go up to number 2, to potential development of substitute products. Do we want to, does Nike want to make flip-flops? Does Nike want to get into, as we'll mention a little bit later, business line? So things to pay attention to with that. Then number 3, potential of entry of new competitors. Under Armour, New Balance, have to pay attention to those things. Number 4, bargaining power of suppliers. This is what I was kind of alluding to earlier. Nike has a great deal of power over the Asian factories where the shoes are made. So they kind of control that stake where they can make the product cheaper and then sell it, at a much higher price, obviously. They also control that output. And then the bargaining power of buyers, consumers of footwear have a great deal of power because they can switch manufacturers for numerous reasons. So that's Nike 4.3. Another important thing to understand is the term SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, we use it with sports teams, we use it with businesses, educational. And what it stands for is evaluating your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And it's a very highly recommended and strategic tool. And the first 2 I want to talk about, strengths and weaknesses, that is internal. What is your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Within every company, organization, sports team, you're going to have strengths, you're going to have weaknesses. And that's the internal environment. The other opportunities and threats have to go with the external environment. Okay? What are some opportunities with that? The economy's good, so less students attend college. That's statistics, that's facts. What is the opportunity? Well, if the economy's good, it may provide for greater fundraising opportunity because more individuals have more working, more individuals have disposable income because of the stock market, things like that. So always find the positives or opportunities within the external factors, and then the threats too. So threats are, rival companies, NFL, people don't watch NFL as much, and you're Reebok and you have a contract with the NFL, for example. So highly recommend using SWOT analysis. Potential substitute products, another thing worth mentioning, and then the slides, NASCAR caught a lot of not consumers, but companies, Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, really off guard and provided a different market for advertising and products because of the popularity of it. It just kind of caught wildfire overnight. Again, you're dealing in specific areas or regions, and then also WWE or WWF caught fire a few years back too. So that's on Monday nights. So is Monday Night Football. So then maybe less people are watching Monday Night Football. So again, understanding that marketplace and where things are going. Understand the bargaining power of consumers. On the previous slides, as consumers of footwear have power because they can shift to other manufacturers on a whim because of a new style or what's in marketing, all those things too, because you're not stuck with a certain shoe. Understanding that. However, consumers lose power when they are loyalty to a single business like Nike and want to buy only Nike footwear. Brand recognition, contracts. If you're in an athletic team, you have a contract with Nike. Well, obviously you can only wear Nike footwear. It goes both ways, but it's very, very, very powerful to not just Nike, but also the consumers with that as well. Competitive advantage. So things to talk about, things to discuss. What makes us different from our competition? Why should somebody buy our product or service rather than compete, rather than a competitor's product or service? Why should they attend our university? Why should they attend or be on our sports team? What is our competitive advantage? These are things, and again, maybe we don't have an advantage. Maybe we need to come up with an advantage. Things to discuss when you are analyzing your businesses and what direction you're going. Goals versus objectives. Love this quote. Goal without a plan is just a wish. The goals state the general targets to be accomplished. Objectives state what is to be accomplished in a specific measurable terms by a specific date. Okay? And those are two key elements of within your organizations, is setting those when you're making objectives. It's by a specific target date. Writing objectives. Successful people set goals, then strive to attain them. For an objective to be useful, it must lead to a single result that is specific and measurable, and must include a target date. So the term SMART goals or SMART objectives, specific, measurable. You can. Hey, we were successful because we did this by this date. That's what you're looking for. Kind of a template here of writing objectives. Always start with, add an action verb, choose a target date, increase, very, very specific in those things. We can see it, we can measure it. This is what we want to do going forward in writing objectives for our company. Management by objectives is a process in which a manager and their teams jointly set objectives, periodically evaluating performance and rewarding results. There's 3 steps to MBO. Number 1, set individual objectives and plan. Number 2, give feedback. Number 3, reward according to performance. Understand that all good performances start with clear goals. Grand strategies within an organization or business, growth, stability, turnaround, or a combination of these. So within an organization's grand strategies, those are where we're going. Those are our dream, our big overall strategies. I'm going to take over a company and I'm going to turn it around. Growth, stability, very, very common basic ones of what our overall grand strategies might be. Corporate growth strategies concern these listed here. Corporate growth strategies, concentration, backward integration, forward, related to and unrelated diversification, mergers, and acquisitions. What the heck do all those things mean? It means all the things that you could possibly have within an organization or corporation. Okay? Example would be with Dick's Sporting Goods. They use concentration strategy where they continue to open up new stores. On the other one, News Corporation, which is Fox Networks, used forward integration and it bought the Dodgers a few years ago. for a news corporation buying a baseball team, it gave them an opportunity to show its team on its networks. And then they turned around and sold that company. And, it's interesting when companies do that, what they can do. Another example would be Nike on the diversification. Nike is now doing, business line. So getting that swoosh within the business, not just in the athletic apparel mass. So that's going to open up its market, and that would be a growth strategy. So that's diversification. Portfolio analysis, business portfolio analysis, pretty simple. Corporations determine which lines of business they'll be in and how they will allocate the resources among the different lines. And figure 4.7, market growth rate. This is an example of Nike watches, low priority, high priority. Where's the big money in? Obviously, athletic footwear. What are some stars? The apparel, golf equipment. When Tiger was Tiger and booming, Nike sales were through the roof. We're starting to come back a little bit. But this is kind of an example of how where they're putting their resources, where they're putting their money, and an analysis of their individual company. Business level strategy. Organizations cannot effectively compete using two strategies at once because it would lead to a, quote, stuck in the middle syndrome. Others believe you can use two strategies at once. I kind of disagree. Again, you can be anything, you can't be everything. So picking one and you can shift between the two. You can't be doing two at the same time, or three in some cases of those things. So adaptive strategies, competitive strategies, just vocabulary terms of understanding. Again, and market analysis. What are we doing? Where are we going? The life cycle of a product, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. Products are always going to follow this. These are the four certainties: how long they grow and how long they decline or till they decline. That is the variable question. That is what we must figure out. Functional level strategies, marketing functions. The marketing department has the responsibility of using the 4 P's. Okay? Within these P's, they are product, price, plan, place, and promotion to reach the target market that the organization wants to reach. It's fun to use examples of the 4 P's in anything we do. So just understand that within your marketing, so in a business marketing, you're responsible for those 4 P's, where you place them, how you differentiate. That's going to be determine the success or the growth rate, also the decline of that product. Operational strategies used by every functioning department, human resources, to achieve the business level objectives within that organization. And then the last thing is implementation and controlling with the strategies. This is the best practice. Again, so many companies they do everything and then they miss the last one. They just miss implementing it as part of their strategy. Again, implementing and then controlling the results. Human resources, HR departments will work with all the functional departments to recruit, select, train, and evaluate and compensate employees. So using your HR again to get the employees that you want, to evaluate them, very, very important within the company as a resource that is consistent. Finance functions perform at least 2 major functions within those. They raise money through the sale of stocks, equity, bonds, and then they decide on the debt to equity ratio and then pay off the debt into dividends. Number 2, They record transactions, develop budgets, and report on financial results, income statements. Okay? This is the function of this department. This is the function that helps you, again, control the results, understand the results. Are we going in the right direction? Where's our product going? Use this department. Hope you've enjoyed presentation number 4.